the last time you and I had spoken here, there was a lot that I had to think about with what you had shared with me before, because it's funny because I actually talked to my brother not too long after our initial conversation, and I forgot how we got into here, but we were talking about ghosts or whatever else, and I had told him that I spoken with you, and he had said to me, what sparked that in the first as well, Brim recommending. I was telling the whole thing about with Brim and our connection, whatnot. And he was like, I never thought you'd ever be interested in looking into it. I was like, neither did I. To be honest with you, it never crossed my mind to do so, because it was just not something I was interested in pursuing, because it's not something that really, it captures my attention, but I don't know enough for me to ask the right questions, if that makes any sense. So when we were talking about what you had shared with me, he had said something to me that I thought was quite interesting, which kind of it took a while for me to kind of get to where I'm at with this question now that I wanted to ask you, as I mentioned before. But what he had shared with me was regards about, when we were growing up as kids, I had been, with our Hispanic culture, it never really resonated with me about how superstitious, people can be. And I personally had grown out of it. And because I've grown out of it, I've always been in a position now where the more I started thinking about it, I had started to, at least for myself, and you let me know if you have a perspective that could maybe enlighten me with this here, because when I started to notice that the superstitions that I had before, for me personally, didn't have any weight to it. The more I think about it, because it always seemed like it was just like a tactic about if you do the following things, these things will occur that could possibly affect you in a negative light. But then the more I thought about it, I did do some of those things, and it just never panned out the way that they had described it. In fact, it was nothing had happened at all. And so as time has gone by, I just became very distant with that. But then I've come across with a lot of people who have told me about their superstitious beliefs, and some of it's kind of casual conversation. But then when I had asked them a little bit further about, can you just clarify what it is that you had that brought this to you for you to believe in it, and then for you to say this is how it, what I experienced made me believe what I believe now. Unfortunately for me, it didn't really necessarily hold a lot of weight. I have to, because a lot of things they explained to me seem very, what's the best way I could describe it? I guess the best way I could describe it is it just didn't have any merit to it. It's almost as if though they just said what they wanted to hear and see, and it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So it was almost as if though, like, I believe because I think it's true, and that's kind of where it all ended there for me personally. So because you have a background and stuff, I've always wanted to ask someone in your position that if you had any doubts at all about what it is you've come across here, that I think I may have brought this up before in the previous conversation, but if you had ever seen something that you questioned, like, is it even real to begin with here? Because I've seen stuff before, but now I'm actually trying to I'm questioning it. Is this any of the stuff even real to begin with? And if it is real, why do I believe? Like, what exactly am I looking at that qualifies as being true? Because you brought it before in the past that you have various evidence of stuff that you've come across here. And again, when I'm saying this, I'm not throwing this at you by any means, so I hope it doesn't come up negatively here. But when I've seen people share what those evidence may be, whether it be online or various stories that may come across here and there, for me, it doesn't necessarily hold up a lot of weight, because some of the evidence that they've come across or they've shown or whatever the case may be just doesn't seem very believable to me personally. But right. I always wonder if anyone who's actually in the field as yourself invested into that, if they ever had any doubt that anything they've come across here just didn't seem believable, as maybe at some point they really hold it in such, I guess, they truly 100% are invested as far as why they believe in it, but then somewhere along the way do they question it, and if it doesn't make any sense to them, why stay with it after all these years, if that makes any sense. So that's the elongated question, but I want to hear what your answer is to this first before I ask the next question, because I'm really curious to see what you're going to say with that, because I'm not sure if what I'm asking is going to go anywhere particular, but I hope you understand why I want to start off with that.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to kind of bring it back to the beginning when you were saying something about how things didn't pan out the way that you expected, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, certain things you have to think of it when it comes to like working with the spirit world, whether it be a religious or just energy that you're working with, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like going fishing,
Okay.
right? So you could throw out that I'm stealing this from one of our members who has said this, by the way. But it's kind of like throwing that fishing rod out there and, seeing what you get. You might not get anything. You might go fishing every weekend for 20 years and never catch a fish. And then, go on a Wednesday and catch 15 fishes. Like it just,
Interesting.
it depends on the situation. So that's what I'm going to say as far as catching evidence or having a profound experience. It's very rare. So now fast forward to later on in your question, there's a 2-part or maybe a 3-part answer to that. I can answer that multiple ways in layers. Okay. So have we come across evidence that we might have thought was evidence initially and then found out that it might not have been paranormal?
Yeah.
Yes. Our particular group, now I can't speak for every paranormal investigator out there. I can only speak for how our group runs. So our particular group is scientific based group. And I do the quotes because it's like not a proven science. So that's the only reason why I'm putting the quotes out there.
Okay.
So we're a scientific based group, meaning that we'll use various types of equipment to read the environment and the atmosphere around and the energy to see if we are getting any fluctuations in that and if those can be considered paranormal. Okay. So there are times when we have investigated and we have thought, hey, we might have gotten something here, whether it be a voice phenomena or a hit on the electronics that maybe it shouldn't have gotten a hit on. Like a Geiger counter, for instance, really shouldn't go off. You know what I'm saying? Like, so
Okay.
certain things shouldn't go off that might go off. So let's go to like a voice. If you've gotten like a voice, we've gone back into our archives and re-listen to stuff as time goes on, as you learn more and have more experience, and we realize, okay, that's not it. We'll remove that out of our evidence archive. Or there was a time where there was like a video where they thought that a lamp had moved, but then they realized that you can't see the cord for the lamp. So that you don't know, did somebody accidentally hit it? Did somebody move it? Was somebody trying to mess around? You don't know that. So they throw that away. They can't say that that's valid evidence because they don't have all angles of that. So these are the things that we do. We want to make sure that it's covered completely. So to make sure that our evidence that we're getting is more legitimate, when we use audio recorders out in the field, say I'm in a group with 3 people. 2 of the 3 people or 3 of the 3 people will each have audio recorders. Because a lot of times when you catch a spirit voice, it's not going to be on all 3 recorders. It'll be on 1 or sometimes 2 out of the 3, but most of the time it's just on 1 recorder in our experience.
Okay.
So you could go back, okay, I have a voice on this at this time. If you started around the same time, they could go back to their audio and say, okay, that's on mine. So that could have been human interference. You get what I mean?
I see. Okay.
Okay, so there's ways to validate the evidence that you're getting. Now, there are some people that will take like dust picture, like they assume, and I don't want to judge
I
anyone.
understand that. Okay, I
Okay.
got it.
So, and they'll put that out there for evidence, or they'll put stuff out there that might be an animal or something in the background where they might legitimately believe that that's paranormal evidence. So that's what I'm saying. It can go either way. Why do I keep going it after finding things or having come across people that might have faked evidence or just stuff that might not have been paranormal? Well, because I've had paranormal experiences my entire life. So I'm like, what is this? I'm drawn to that. I want to know why. The experiences that I've personally had. So I can't expect the next person to just take my word for it. a lot of times, especially if you're a skeptic, you have to experience that for yourself.
Right,
So it's
right.
not going to matter how much evidence I show you. There's always going to be that question of what if, you know? But the evidence that I know that I've personally gotten, or that some of our group has personally gotten, has been pretty legitimate, because I know that, like, the environment. So I know that when I had my experience and I read my poetry on an audio device and left it in the place and let it run out, and nobody was in the building, just video cameras, audio, and we sat outside and we know nobody was in there. And we were in the car, we weren't even outside, and you could hear things reacting, talking, answering, and reacting to the things that I had said in the poetry, the automatic writings that I got, in the poetry book that I did, wound up releasing.
Right.
So I could play that for you, but you weren't there.
Right.
So you're going to be like, well, how do I know?
Right. Right.
But so we had video cameras up in every room that we had the audio and all the other evidence in too. So we could show you that nobody was in the house. But that's how a lot of groups, not just our group, will take it a step further to prove that there is maybe something else going on.
But is there like an evolving process when it comes to, because you talked before just now with regards about like how you find certain evidence that at least at the time seemed quite legitimate, or maybe legitimate in terms of like what you thought would be a valid one to more or less kind of let's say prove your case, but rather just like, okay, from what we know from our personal experiences, what we've seen before, and now that we're seeing it through some other format, whether it be someone else's house or whatever the case may be. But at the time you thought this is valid evidence, and then time has gone by, you revisit it and you realize, it doesn't hold up anymore. So I guess my question now is more about how often does that happen? Like, is it consistently happen, or is it sporadic, or is it just a case by case scenario when you kind of go back and look at the stuff that you've come across that you thought would be valid evidence in your eyes?
Right. So what we were doing was we were moving records over, because we have records from every case we've ever done, whether it be for personal reasons or public reasons.
Okay.
So it's because they're creating a database, but that's a whole nother story. So I'll get into that at another time. But if you want to know more, just let me know. But I don't want to get off track of what you want to know.
Sure.
So basically, we were going through and transferring everything over into updated things, updated technology things, so that we could still have backups of it, and etc. And so in doing that is when you listened back through. So a lot of the stuff that they had found that might not have been paranormal was stuff from when the group really first started, and then some stuff later on. But they've gotten a lot stricter and have learned, as I said, over the years. So they have added more of the two or more digital recorders per group, etc.
Right.
So they have done more. So the evidence that we're getting back that we might feel might not be paranormal evidence isn't as much. Does that make sense?
I think I understand where you're going with here, but I guess what I'm just trying to figure out here is because it's one of those things where what's interesting for me about this stuff personally is the fact that when I used to believe in it, I always took it on face value, basically, right? Not to say because I didn't know any better, it's just because it sounded, the idea of listening to people's story about how, whether it be a religious or whatever experience that we're having, it just sounded way too good to I wouldn't say it's too good to be true, but it was more like, it's unbelievable. I want to see that for myself. And sometimes I would be scared depending on the stories, because sometimes they would be rather horrific to some degree. But when you listen to these stories, what started to deteriorate for me personally about this, if any of this is holding up, why are we not seeing more of this here, is because we before in our first conversation I brought up about the who was it, Ed and Lorraine Warren, and there are countless stories about their, so, and we're not going to get into that about specifically, but I just want to bring that up about them because that was kind of like their reputation with a lot of other people who were very skeptical about their investigation. But when you hear about that, and then you hear several other cases like that, the ratio of the consistency of how what was supposedly true turned out to be not so true. But then it was a lot of things where you have to understand, you have to be there, and it's like it's a very weird position that they put the persons or group are putting themselves in, where they're saying it is legitimate, but X, Y, and Z is probably the reason why things didn't work out, and it just never really held a lot of weight, because it's like if I tell you something and then you ask for proof of, let's say, for example, if I've talked to Brim about, we made a deal about this thing, but we're going to bring you in the picture. And then you say, well, I need to see evidence of that. Then here's the text messages. Brim and I have done this and that. So there's something tangible for me to offer to you to verify that. And Brim will also confirm it for you as well, too. In a situation like that with paranormal, a lot of times I've seen people that have said they believe in this stuff, and then all of a sudden they come out with some additional details about, but then they told me this, and then they told me that. And it was a lot more of that than some consistency, like this is what happened, and it's always been that way. It's very rare that I come across a consistent story from start to finish for a long period of time where no one changes their story, and they've all been different places at once where they couldn't communicate, whatever the case may be. So what's interesting for me is that when I spoke with you the last time, a lot of that stuff crossed my mind, but I didn't want to ask those questions. I didn't want to come off as if though like I was attacking anybody.
Right.
But it's interesting for me to see that, because because you were actually so kind to me about answering those questions, it sparked a lot more interest to kind of delve into it further to some degree. But I kept running into the exact same thing each and every single time, where stories are told and then there's always some sort of fallout along the way. So with me saying that, I'm not sure how often you come across that for yourself with other people that say, I used to believe in this stuff. And I'm not sure how important it is for you personally, because since you've been involved with this for, practically your whole life, I'm not sure really what your end game is at the end of the day. I'm not asking for you to like share me like your story about why you believe in it so much, but I guess what I'm really trying to ask is that with someone who, like myself, who can be very skeptical for the reasons which I stated for, and then if you are going out, since you're going out and investigating and then doing these talks or attending talks where everyone's sharing these stories, and you have these experiences that will help you to fine tune certain details about how you go on the next case, whichever case that may be. And if someone is saying to you, I don't believe you, or I don't have any interest at all in this particular field, is it really important for you to prove what you guys are doing to let people know that this stuff is very real and this is the reasons why I believe in it, but I'm also invested in it because there is something out there that is worth looking into, and it would be great to share with the world. Like I genuinely want to know like where that comes from for you. If like, after hearing someone like myself stating why they are very skeptical about this stuff, but what's your goal at the end of the day for yourself personally? But hearing from someone like myself saying, I'm not sure if I really believe in it, and these are the reasons why.
Okay. For me personally,
Yeah.
I don't feel like it is my job to try and sway somebody's beliefs. There might be a reason why they're choosing not to believe.
Right.
Maybe it's something that really just freaks them out. Maybe it's just something that they can't take seriously,
Right.
And then since you've brought up religion, which is not something I normally talk about, by the way, but because it's paranormal and stuff, I will bring it up. So there's a line of faith, right? So if everybody believed in everything with no questions asked or anything like that, but then there wouldn't be like just faith. It would just be belief. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
I think I do. If you can elaborate further, maybe I get a better understanding of it.
Okay, I'm gonna try to explain it better with my mush brain. Okay. What am I trying to say? Okay. So it is not my place to try to sway somebody's mind if they're not going to believe it. I will share my story as long as they are polite about it. But they're welcome to their own opinions. If somebody, I haven't come across somebody who was in the paranormal field who has then left the paranormal field because they did not believe anymore in the paranormal field. They have left the paranormal field because maybe, well, there's drama. There's a lot of drama, but there's also, it's a very heavy thing. You're messing with a lot of stuff. So a lot of people find that they start to go through a lot of crap in their life, like bad things. Sorry for my language. A lot of things go wrong, or they just get overwhelmed, and so they decide to step back from the paranormal field, and then they find that they're feeling a little bit better, and that's what I've noticed as far as why people are leaving the field. Now with the faith thing, see, I was trying to figure out a way to get back to that. Okay, so that's more of like the religious standpoint of it. Like, you can, there's people who believe and there's people who don't believe, right?
Right.
But if we knew the answers to everything, we would have nothing to believe. Does it mean? How am I trying to say this?
I know what you mean. Well, okay, so let me go more in depth here with you on this, because I think I know where you're going with this here. So, do you personally believe? Because I've asked this question before with several people, and it's always because I'm curious to see what a person's perspective is, not just the broad statement, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But do you believe that things do happen for reasons? Like, in other words, like there's a reason why you have more or less this gift, where you've had these experiences. And if you believe you have it for a reason, what do you think that purpose is for? And I guess more or less in the bigger picture, right? Because if you go out and do these investigations and you think it happens for a reason, there's a reason for you to do all this stuff, but then you're coming across evidence, as you mentioned before, that you revisiting for one reason or another, moving things around, and you've come across that, this doesn't hold up as well. What is the purpose of all this here? And then if someone is questioning your beliefs as far as, why do you believe in this stuff? And then you share your experiences with them and they're saying, yeah, I don't believe it either. So thanks for sharing it. And they move on with their day. For you personally, like, why do you, do you believe that things happen for a reason? If you do, why? And then what's the purpose of it? And what do you think the big goal at the end of the day is for having this, more or less, this gift that you have here? And at the same time, what do you think is supposed to be the outcome of all this here? Because you say you brought up a little thing about faith, but I've always wondered for someone who's in your field, like, if they really do believe that there's a bigger picture out there, and this is why we're doing it. Like, if it's like a doctor saving patients for one reason or another, for cancer, whatever the case may be, there is a purpose for that. Now, I personally don't believe things happen for a reason, but that's not because I don't think people are wrong in believing that. It's just there's too many things that's conflicting with why I believe that. But from your perspective, I'm curious to see where you stand with that, considering your field.
Okay, I do believe things happen for a reason. I do. I'm one of those people.
Right.
Do I believe that everything that happens in your life happens for a reason? No, because I believe that there are certain paths that you could take, and there's a variety of things that might occur.
Right.
But we are born of free will, so we get to choose the path that we take. It's not chosen for us. The faith thing, I could figure it out. Okay, so like miracles, I can't let it go until I explain myself.
Sure.
Miracles don't happen to everyone, right? And not everyone sees a ghost. Mm-hmm. And so, like, maybe it's just to give you something to question, to look forward to ponder about, because then life would just be so boring. Anyway, that's my thing. And then back to the other question. I don't remember what it was.
Well, the question is about, like, if you believe there's a bigger picture behind the reasons for why you think you have this gift that you have, and I was going more in depth about, like, when you come across evidence that you realize that doesn't hold weight anymore because of these new technologies and whatever else, but then you come across once in a while people are questioning your beliefs, your methods, if you will, and then you explain it to them and they're like, nah, I don't believe it. And then they go on with their day, but yet you still believe that there's a reason why you have this, and what do you think the reasons for it? And do you think there's a bigger goal in mind for you or for what you are doing in this field that maybe serves a purpose for more or less the bigger picture, if you will?
So I don't feel like, I know you brought up before something about like doctors and like saving lives and all that stuff. Yeah.
Right, right.
We're like
That's just an example of like
doing
what people believe
no,
their
no, no,
purpose for
but
that.
I understand and I agree with you. And I know that like, so like the big purpose here isn't that we're gonna you know, save lives or find immortal life or anything like that in that kind of a sense, like
Right,
the
right.
fountain of youth type of thing, you know.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
But I think that it's just, I think a lot of people again do it um because they've had experiences in life that they couldn't explain, that they're trying to explain, and they're trying to prove to themselves that it exists more than I think that they're trying to prove to others. Then there's some people um who might want to get a little of the fame that might go along with it should they capture something profound and amazing, and you know they want to be the first one. And um I feel like why do I have my gift and what is the purpose of that? I don't feel like my gift is meant for, this is going to sound so odd. I hear myself when I talk, so I know how crazy I sound. But I feel
I
that
don't think you're
my,
crazy, but I'm really curious to see what you have to say though, because I'm genuinely interested in seeing what your perspective on that is though.
okay, so initially I would have felt that like maybe I was supposed to communicate messages from like spirit to people who have lost loved ones and maybe share messages, but that never really connected for me. Have I done it? Yes, but I never felt like that was my path. I've always felt like my path was more of the investigative psychic work, stuff like that, and that
Right.
would be where I, but then I didn't feel like that was my path either after some time. So I kind of feel like I'm not meant to be here for humans to interact with spirit. I'm here to just help spirit on my own with whatever. And that is my thing. That is just my opinion.
Right.
I can't speak again for everybody else and why they're doing it and what they feel that they're going to make a mark or get out of it. But that's my thing, is maybe I'm supposed to help those spirits who have lost their voice have a voice, share their story so that they could potentially move on. So that you know, I don't know. It's not a proven science, so I can't speak in absolutes and I can't say for sure that I have all of the answers. All of this is just my opinion on my experiences.
So with this gift that you have, and you described about what you believe your reasons for having it, your purpose and decisions you made as far as why you're pursuing the path you're taking on here. But you know, once all this ends here, do you believe that once you pass on, that the gift that you have will carry on more or less in the afterlife? So in other words, if you're saying that you have spirit more or less guiding you, giving you, you know, they're communicating with you in some way or shape or form. Do you believe that for yourself, after you pass on, that you are more or less going to be doing the exact same thing in the afterlife? And if so, um, but I'm wondering, what do you think that there's more to it? I guess that's what I was asking before about the bigger picture. Like, do you think there's more to it after you move on? You know, when you pass away, that this gift is too good to have it. We just can't. Once you die, it doesn't go away. You're gonna carry it on afterwards. And now you're gonna talk to these people over here. You're gonna talk to those people over there. Like, do you think there's a purpose for that, as far as the bigger picture is concerned, that you will continue on having this here to, I don't know, maybe help out with an investigation, or maybe communicate with somebody that doesn't know how to communicate certain things, that you're able to help them in some way or shape or form, but understand the consequences of what they're going to go through, and how are you going to deal with it to make it easier for them, that you've experienced for yourself that wasn't as easy for you, but you discovered ways to make it easier for you that you could probably share on with somebody else in the afterlife. I know I'm going a little bit too deep into that, but I'm curious to see what your perspective on that is for yourself.
No, I actually really like that question. It's a really interesting question. Um, I think that would be I think that would kind of make sense, right? That it would carry on and continue to help. I don't think that like once I go from here, I'm just gone forever. And I don't think all of me comes back either. I think bits and pieces. I think that maybe, yeah, maybe it's meant that you come here for a little while with this kind of experience and then you share with those spirits what you've experienced and how maybe they could cope and how they can work with it. And then maybe, who knows, maybe I'd be a guide for someone else. I don't know.
Do you
That'd
think
be
that
really cool.
but do you think that, so for example, like where, with your book that you had written a while back, when you were basically articulating these words for someone else,
Yeah. Yeah.
and let's say, for example, they are still having trouble more or less communicating or just letting go, if you will,
Hmm.
but you pass on and you know exactly what they've gone through. Do you think that, well, now I can see them in the afterlife, I'm gonna go help them out? Because clearly, before I left, they were still struggling. Now I'm gonna go talk to them. I'm
I
not saying
get what
that's
you're
what's happening right
saying.
now, but do you understand?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand now. That makes a lot of sense. Um, that would, yeah, I mean, but that's also considering that you would even be on the same energy plane as that person. You might not even be on the same energy plane as that spirit.
But what does
You
that mean,
know,
though?
you
Energy
even,
plane, when you say that?
okay, I don't know how to explain it into just like a simplified way. But I'm gonna try.
Okay.
So like there's different types of hauntings that we've had experienced, that people have experienced, and there's like something that you might have heard of as residual haunting.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that's kind of like on a loop where it's not going to interact with you or change its path or do anything different from what it's done since it's been there, right?
Okay.
So whether that be like walking across the floor at 8 o'clock at night, you'll hear the 10 footsteps across the floor every night at 8 o'clock at night. You can count on it happening, like it's gonna happen, or certain things like that. And then you have certain spirits that they'll say are like an intelligent haunt. So that's the one where you can actually communicate with that spirit and have a understanding. Hello, what is your name? My name is Paul. How old are you? 23. I'm sorry, Paul, 23. But like that's young. I don't know why I said that.
That's fine.
But like, but Paul, there could also be another intelligent spirit on in there that they can't communicate with each other. They're not on that same, they're on a different frequency. So then you could have the residual haunt, Mary, Paul, and Peter, since we're going all over.
Oh, okay. I
You
think I
get what I'm
understand what you
saying?
mean. I think I do. Yeah, I think I do. So
So,
essentially, what you're describing to me is that someone who is going through more or less a residual haunt, like a loop, if you will, they're stuck
right,
in that mode.
right.
And once you try to communicate with them, it's hard to get them out of that loop. It's very hard
They're
to
not
break
gonna,
through that.
they're not gonna, there's no way. If they're communicating with you, they're not a residual haunting.
Okay, so from your understanding of it, what would cause for someone to go through a residual, like a loop in this case here, that would make it
Right.
very hard for them to break through? Like even if you,
A traumatic experience,
okay,
or doing the same event. And I don't mean to cut you off,
that's fine.
but say there is, and that does not mean that there can't be energy left that's residual and that person can't intelligently move on as well. Okay.
Okay.
Energy. Okay. So it's made up of a lot of things. Okay. So say there's we'll do something like not super traumatic, but like a car accident or something where something happens quick, ends quick, you might not know that you're going or whatever. That energy from that experience, from what people might have felt, or even something even big. Oh, okay, you know what? Let's skip the car accident. Erase that from your brain.
Okay.
We're going to go with Gettysburg. We're going to go with Gettysburg. That's a perfect example. Okay. Because a lot of people will say, like, oh, what lovely reenactors you had over there today. And da 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 da. They were a great tour guide, whatnot. And it turns out that there were no reenactors there that day. There was no tour. guide there that day, or people will see things or hear things in the background. People might hear battle cries. They might see soldiers and stuff like that. But that person might not communicate with you. So there's been people who have seen like the line of soldiers marching through, and then it just continues and continues and continues, but it's on a loop. So it's not going to communicate with you. It can walk right through you, a traumatic experience.
But
So
is there a way to break them out of that though? Like, can you, like,
no,
if you,
not that I know of.
okay. But would you ever try to do that, considering what you know, how traumatic the experience would be, that,
You
whether,
can kind of do like a cleansing, I guess. You can cleanse the energy of the area and stuff like that, and hope that it helps whatever's trapped there move forward.
like,
But I
when you
don't
say
know
cleansing, what do you
if
mean by cleansing?
there's various types of cleansings you could do based on your religion or experiences that you have. There's spiritual cleansings.
But is there like a definitive way for, let's say, the average person that, let's say, is not religious at all, that would say they believe in this, but they say, you recommend a cleansing. I don't have any religious association at all whatsoever. What's the go-to method of doing this here?
I'm gonna get in trouble if I say this.
Really?
Because because it's a big thing right now. So
Well, if you don't want to
okay.
say it, we
no.
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I want to say it, and I'm going to say it with this. I have a lot of respect for the indigenous people, and so some people are a lot of times they use cleansing, they use sage and stuff like that, and so a lot of people are saying that that it's not right for other people to use it in their cleansing rituals. But
Okay.
I personally, when I do my cleansings, I do use sage, and I think it's just that you should get it from the right sources, right? Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there. So a lot of people will use sage or candles or frankincense. It depends on your religion. It depends on your beliefs. I'm not going to say that there's a specific one that works.
But would it work
More
for
than
somebody who's not, like, someone like me, for example? Like, if I,
you're not really
like, because I'm not religious at all. So but let's say I have experienced something that, maybe I believe that there's some weight behind. Like, there's something going on here that I can't explain. I've had, electricians come through. I had my handyman come through. We've looked at everything, and they found absolutely nothing. So maybe the next step would be that there might be something else that's completely unexplainable to me that I don't know, and there might be some spiritual thing. This is probably the opportunity for me to get someone to come in this field that can maybe look at something that I would never consider, but now I'm going to try it just to see if there's anything that I may be overseeing. So if you're telling me there's a cleansing and there's a religious association with some form of cleansing, and I'm like, I don't believe in this stuff at all, I have no association with religion, what would you recommend?
I would just do more of like the natural way, like like don't do it for you have to. Okay, this is a bit because so many people do it so different. So I don't
Right.
want to go out there and say like my way is the way or
No, I
the
understand.
only way,
But
the
I
right
just want to
way,
know, like,
right?
what would be
No, I
the go-to
understand.
way?
I'm just putting that out there
Okay.
for people who might I don't want to offend anyone. So yeah, I guess, well, for me, when I've had people who just didn't have a religious background, and they didn't want to do any type of religious type of cleansing, I normally just do my little witchy thing.
Okay.
So just put I use black salt,
Okay.
Dead Sea salt. I do use sage. I use a white candle. I use a black candle. And there was some crystals. I know how this sounds to skeptics,
No,
so
I'm
that's
not.
why I'm like,
But
no, to like just in general, but like
right.
Okay. So like,
but I just want to, like, I don't want you to think that when you're telling me stuff that I'm thinking is crazy, because that's not the case at all. Because at the
no,
same time,
that's
I'm
okay.
genuinely curious about like the approach you're taking on
I
here, because I do want to learn about how the stuff would work, but at the same time, as someone that's doesn't believe in this stuff, it doesn't mean that I don't think that what you're doing is completely wacky. I don't know personally, so I want to make sure that I preface that with you, because I think I should have done that from the beginning, but that I don't think you're crazy, even though I'm still maybe skeptical. I still am skeptical, to be honest with you, but a part of me kind of wishes that it could be true sometimes, but there's a part of me that's like, this there's no relevance behind it here for me personally, but somehow I'm still curious about it, and I'm like I said, that's why I've reached out to see if you can enlighten me with what I'm hoping to learn from this here, because if you have something that is really worth pursuing for yourself after all these years, there's got to be something behind it for me to learn from you that I'm hoping that I can take away to really get the bigger picture, if that makes any sense.
right. I think that for me personally, the most important thing I think that I want people to know is that it isn't just fun and games.
Right.
That like you really don't know what you're messing with. And what if you do catch that big fish? What are you gonna do?
Right.
Because I didn't go. I was investigating for what, 10 years at that point before anything like that had ever happened to me,
Hmm.
to the point where like I still am like, am I crazy? I did This didn't really, maybe I just lost my mind, maybe am I making this up? And then it takes the other people who are there to be like, no, look at your evidence. Listen to those EVPs. Look at all this stuff that you've been through. Look at how you've changed. Look at this. Look at that. And then it's like, okay. And then it gives me a moment of clarity and relief, and then a moment of complete anxiety, because it's like, what the hell? Because like I thought that kind of stuff only happened in the movies. And that's
Right.
me investigating for so long. So that's me trained to investigate. And so if you don't really know what you're doing, you're messing around. And you know uh okay, so there's someone in the voodoo religion, I believe it's the voodoo religion, so don't come at me, called Papa Legba.
Never heard of it.
Okay, so he, from what I believe, is like the crossroads, right? And so like he will bring the spirits forward, and he does like favors and stuff like that. I don't
Okay.
know a lot about that religion, so again, don't be offended. But there's a story in the news that you can look up that supposedly this young girl, this young white girl,
Okay.
had called to Papa Legba uh, for a favor because her girlfriend had broken up with her, and she wanted to get back at her something, get back at her something.
Okay.
And everyone was telling her that she was crazy for this stuff and blah blah blah. And it is known that that's like one of the entities that you definitely don't want to, in that religion, that you don't want to call upon unless you absolutely know what you're doing. And this young girl um, was found dead in her bathtub, oh, alone. She drowned in her own bathtub, like maybe 3 days later, I want to say. You can look it up. It's
Okay.
it's it's a news. It's more than one news source.
Okay.
Um, that had happened. Am I going to say that that was absolutely paranormal? No, I'm not going to say that it definitely was. But how creepy! You don't know. So why would you? You should take it seriously. If it's something that scares you, don't mess with it. If it's something that
Okay.
interests you, do it with caution, just like you would anything else. Do your research first. Look into some things if you're looking to investigate. This is for people out there who might be looking to investigate it further, who might have that interest. Be
Okay.
careful. You don't know. You might catch the big fish.
Well, have you ever come across something that you just flat out? I guess how the question I'm asking really is more about where you were just tired of it. where when you started doing an investigation, you're just like, I just don't want to do it right now. I'm done, tired. Whether
Yeah.
it be absolutely for maybe at that moment definitively, or more in the sense of like, just don't want to do it because I don't care about this stuff. I don't care what we're going to come across. I'm tired of this. I just don't want to be associated with this for whatever those reasons may
Hmm.
be, whether it be, personal struggles you're going through or you're just overwhelmed, but it led you to that point where you just really wanted to walk away. And then what brought you back to stay in it? Because again, it's if you invested so much time into this here, especially with this investigation, because last time you and I had talked before about this, you're doing this out of your own free time.
Yeah.
But then doing it out of your own free time, I've always wondered if you felt like is this even worth my purpose of me doing this here? Because you know not that I want to get paid, well, not that I'm doing it for money, but if I want to do this here, there's got to be some sort of compensation in some way for me to stay in this here with me for this lengthy period of time.
Yeah. I'm actually going through that right now.
Really?
And
Okay.
yeah, well, that's the first time I'm saying that publicly, but
Interesting.
I am going through that right now. I am kind of teetering on whether or not I want to continue on with being in my group, or even investigating, period. Um, I do have some events coming up that I'm going to be hosting investigations at, so I'm going to stick with those commitments that I have. But the reason for that isn't so much about money or anything like that. It's actually because this is going to sound terrible. This is going to sound so terrible, but it's kind of not exciting to me anymore.
Like
I
what
had
exactly lost the
such,
excitement for you?
yeah, I had a spirit attached to me and changed my entire freaking life. And you're not going to hit that lotto twice. So, I mean,
Oh,
you might,
okay.
but like nothing can top that, I feel. What's going to top that? What next? Do I have to crawl across the ceiling or have my head spin around, have something
Okay.
get thrown at me, have me levitate? Like honestly, like what tops that? Not only that, but it was very traumatic.
Mm.
I make jokes about it a lot because it's easier to cope with that way. But it was very, very traumatic for multiple reasons. One, 90% of the people think I'm nuts. They also think I'm making it up. If I'm not nuts, I'm making it up, or I'm nuts, um, or the other people who believe me, I have changed so much that they don't know me anymore, and they no longer want to be a part of my life. Um,
Could
and
you
things like that. It
could you
was very
explain that to me
traumatic.
though? Because I hope you don't mind me interrupting you, but I that
I'm an
actually
open book. Go for it.
okay. Well, I'm actually really curious about what it is that people say they are claiming that you've changed to the point where I'm assuming they're saying they don't recognize you, but what exactly about the change about yourself that they are saying that they want to walk away from? Like, what specifically, if you don't mind sharing, is
Sure.
having them keep that space between you and themselves?
Well, some of the people that were there for that experience, um, our friendship has changed because I freak them out. Because they say like that they saw the change in me, that they saw that I was not myself. It freaked them out to the core. Um, People wouldn't come near me for a while. After that, I've changed my personality wise. It's actually taken even my family, my immediate family, a while to adjust to how I am now. I am not, okay. So, me before, from what I don't really remember, but what I've been told is that I was a lot more easygoing.
So you're not
Um,
easygoing now?
I'm very high strung now.
What do you
Uh,
mean by high strung?
I'm very high strung and I'm very impatient and I get um, very irritable very fast. That does not mean that I'm a tyrant and I don't just like whatever, but I don't
Okay.
have patience. I'm not the same as I don't have the same demeanors as I had before. High strung, I am Yeah, I'm
So when you're
always
saying you're
like on
impatient,
edge.
right? Oh, I get what you're saying with the high strung part, but when you're saying you're impatient, are you talking about this might be a very general question, but impatient as in you go to a restaurant and the food's taking too long to come out. Is that what you mean by impatient?
I mean, impatient with people as far as um, everything.
Well, I mean,
I
I
don't
know. I
know. Like,
think I think I'm coming to a better understanding, but like at least from my experience with you, through messaging and then here and in our first conversation, not to say that I'm making assumptions about you, but if someone were to ask me, you've spoken with Shannon? Yeah, I have. I've spoken with her plenty of times. Okay, great. How was she with you? She's been perfectly fine.
no.
I asked her questions, and sometimes I asked questions that I really wanted to dig in deep, and she was patient with me. And if they
Yeah.
were to say to me that really she's not the person that you're explaining to me the way you're describing her, I was like, well, I have a video of her talking to me, and I've asked her questions. I've interrupted her a few times. Why I didn't understand something, she would take the time to explain it. So my experiences with her has not been with what you are going to claim to say based on your initial remarks there. So I guess it's hard for me to really understand that because one of the things for me, at least with you, I'm going to stick with you, obviously, but it's just that if I'm digging in deep, it's because you're willing to open up. But for me to
Mhm.
keep digging is because there's something more that I want to learn. And I'm not going to ask you the general questions like, well, "Tell me about the next haunt you have." It's just I'm not going to get anywhere with that for me personally because there's nothing exciting for me about that. So if I'm asking you these questions because I really want to know where you're coming from all this here, but I believe that in order for me to really get to know, I have to ask some harder questions for me to get the best out of you, if that makes any sense. I hope it doesn't come off, rude for me to say that, but
Not at all.
okay, thank you. So, but that's basically where I don't fully understand why people would say that and why you are saying that about yourself, because I'm not getting that across from you right now. So it's hard for me to really understand where all this is coming from, because if there's a change that's occurring along the way, if you're saying you're impatient, I genuinely believe it comes from a point where you're saying, if I'm impatient with people, well, if I'm your waiter and you're asking for a meal, and I said, well, it's going to be 15 minutes, 15 minutes come by. I'm sorry, ma'am, your meal's not ready yet, but we're going to get this. Like, oh, I want my meal right now. You said 15 minutes. Like,
No,
you seem by impatient. That's kind of what I'm picturing here.
that's not the area where I'm impatient. Like, if there's communication, I'm okay. Okay. So like if I had plans to do something,
Mhm.
but it's up in the air, right? And it's supposed to be confirmed like that day. And
Okay.
I've not like heard anything. Like, prior to all of this, I was easygoing. If it happened, it happened. If it didn't, it didn't. I could go about my day. Now it's like I need to, like, if you don't tell me, and if you don't tell me now, like, I start to get like tight in the chest. I start to get like I have to know, like I have to have it lined out. And if there's a shift in that, this is, I think that's why, like, today with like how everything got pushed back a little bit,
Mhm.
like I was so apologetic because I know how I'm now. I wouldn't take that out on somebody, and I wouldn't be like screaming at a person, but internally
But if I
I
was
get
if I was
like,
doing that to you though, would you have reacted that way to me if I said, "Hey,
no,
we're gonna start at 5 o'clock," and then all of a sudden, oh, hold on one second, I'm running behind, and then you're waiting for an answer,
no,
and then
because you no, because you would have told me, like, it's communicating. Now, if you had shown up, like, and not said anything, like a while later, I would have been a little bit tight, but I wouldn't have taken it out. I would have been short, maybe, but I wouldn't have like just taken it out on you. Well, I think you would have been too, like if I had just showed up like 2 hours late without saying anything and just assuming, like, okay, yeah, let's get started. Like, I'm ready. Like, I think you'd be like, yeah, well, I was ready 2 hours ago.
right. But I think at
Right.
least I think for me though, I think it's kind of a case by case scenario for me because what but for what's interesting for me about you, because I hope you don't mind the me staying on the topic of you, because it's very interesting for me because this all basically falls back on this whole spiritual, more or less experiences you're going through, where one particular experience had more or less changed everything about you, and then people are like, oh, I've noticed all these changes about you, and therefore they're cutting ties. That's the part that I don't understand, where you're saying to me about these changes, your demeanor changes, and something else changes. I think at one point you mentioned about color eyes had changed too in our first conversation. I'm not sure that's all pertaining to that, but I'm just saying though, like you mentioned about changes before, but I guess because I've never been around you like that. It's hard for me to understand that, but so that's why I'm hoping you can explain to me, because if you can't remember certain things, I'm curious what you mean by that. And again, I hope you don't mind me digging too deep to this,
It's
because
okay.
I just want to know, like, what exactly you can't remember, like how I used to behave. Because you said that I was very easygoing, but then something you couldn't remember. What is it you can't remember that people are pointing out to
So
you? You used to be like this, now you're
people
like
keep,
this. I don't remember.
yes, people keep telling me that I have changed, although I don't feel as if I have changed because I feel like I have been this person my whole life. So when it comes to like the attachment and like also speaking to other people in the paranormal field that are more knowledgeable, um, me and them, I and them and I, I don't know how to say
Okay.
that proper,
Okay.
um, feel that it's not just like necessarily a spirit attachment, but now it's kind of like just merged into one thing. So it's like
Do you really
a
believe
part
that's
of
a
me.
possible thing to do, for it to happen?
Living it, yeah. I mean, if I had heard this,
Right.
don't get me wrong.
Right.
If I had heard somebody else saying this, I might be like, I don't know. So
Right.
I understand why people are skeptical of it. And that's why I don't get upset if somebody doesn't believe me. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Right.
Because I know what I'm experiencing now. Um, People have told me I've changed. Now they've not flat out said, I'm not going to talk to you or hang out with you anymore because you've changed and some have. Um, some have just distanced themselves away.
Okay.
And then I've heard from others that that is why that has happened, you know.
No.
So it's I'm not the same person I was before, and I can't blame them because we might not connect the same way that we did before. So I don't have necessarily the same interests that I might have had before. I don't necessarily do the same things that I've done before. I mean, before I just sat around and I ate all damn day. Literally, that's what I did. I was the fun fat friend.
I used to be
I'm
the
not the
fun fat kid too. So yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah. So
That's funny you
I'm
said
not the
that.
fun fat friend now.
That's funny.
Now I'm the thinner, hungry grouch. Like who wants to be around that? Like feed a bitch a donut.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
it's nuts. That's fine. I guess there was a question I was going to start off here with you, because there's something that you said that really got my attention on something. But if I remember, I'll get back to it. But I
Okay.
think, what I'm trying to get a better understanding too with you is that so I guess I just don't really understand the fact of how you say that you believe that there's a merge of personalities from a spirit or something else that mold into where you are, who you are now.
Hmm.
Have you ever considered doing a cleansing of yourself, if about, hey, well, I cleanse this house, let me just try this on me
Yeah.
because it seems to work.
Yeah, no, it makes it worse. I've tried it a few times.
Okay, so
It
and please
makes it
understand, I'm just
worse.
joking here, but that's not a good sales pitch right there.
I wasn't the one. Hey, I didn't cleanse myself.
I'm just joking. But
Sorry, just
no, it's
kidding,
okay.
Michelle.
That's okay. It's just
My
joking.
friend did it.
But
No.
I think, but see, this is why I was really interested in conversing with you, because one of the things that I remember that because I've seen some of your other interviews as well too, just to kind of see how where you are with yourself now. And I now remember what the question was that I wanted to ask you, which was that, like, do you personally feel? So you talked about how just now you were contemplating about eventually just walking away, and you're at this point right now to really figure that out for yourself, and however you decide to do it, you'll get to that point. But once you came to that part of yourself where you realize that, I think I'm going to go down this route now and not stick with this anymore for those reasons you pointed out beforehand, were you feeling happier as a result of that, or were you confused, or were you very is it hard for you to separate yourself from that, or was it just easier for you to delve into it further to really come to a decision where you know where you're leaning more towards, and now it's about executing this said decision?
Right. I've been going back and forth with this since I've had my experience personally, because I did have a lot of crazy, terrifying things occur. And I thought that it was just something that I would get past, get over. I can't let down my guard to really enjoy it anymore for right now. I think I will come back to it. I think I need to take
Like a
a little bit of
sabbatical?
time off. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's something that I've always loved. It's something that I enjoyed doing because it always made me feel like I had a connection to, it was something that I could talk to my dad about. Um, I didn't live with my dad,
Right.
and it was something that he was into. I It's really actually kind of sad because thinking about it, I don't know much about my dad. I know that he liked the Beatles. I know that he liked Pink Floyd. I know that he was a good guitar player, and he liked ghosts and baseball. So
So this was kind of your
that's what
motivation to stick with it for for a
that's
while.
that's what I think got me into it in the first place more, because I was having those experiences and he was listening and supporting those experiences,
Mm,
joining the field. I lost my dad once I joined the paranormal field.
mm.
I kept doing it because it reminded me of him, made me feel closer to him. But after going through something that traumatic, um, that I went through the last few years with that experience, I needed a moment to, I think,
So
find myself again.
was that a coping mechanism for you to learn how to deal with more or less the loss, or is it just have you not dealt with it, and then now you're coming to a point where you realize maybe I do have to deal with it, in some other fashion?
I think I have to deal with the loss of me more than the loss of my dad. I think that I've come to terms with that at this point. It's been over 10 years
Mm.
um, since he passed away. I think right now, I think I'm I'm kind of mourning. I don't know how to explain it. I'm mourning for a life I don't have anymore. I'm mourning for a life I never had. I don't know which it is. I don't know which one. Maybe
Is
it's a little bit of both.
is it because
I
you
just
think you dedicate too
feel
much time
lost.
to the field more so
I
than
don't
yourself?
dedicate any time. I don't dedicate time to it outside of um when I do my meetings on Thursday nights with my paranormal team. I haven't even been staying for those. I have been not dedicating. I've been focusing more on my
Your personal endeavors?
my, my modeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to do my book
Right.
and finish that.
How's that
Um,
coming along, by the way, with your new book?
it's coming along. I have like five. I have about 4 or 5 chapters left to write, but
Okay.
it's pretty much done.
Okay.
So yeah.
So, well, let's shift gears here real quick because I'm actually curious about with what you just said now, moving forward with what you want to focus your time on here. Um, the modeling, because I've actually noticed that more so on your social media here, and with the conventions you're going to as well too. Like now you have your name does have some value where people are inviting you over to these cons and whatnot, and you've also been asked to be on various podcasts as well to have them explain, have them ask you questions about your experiences and so on.
Correct.
With the shift and change with regards to your career, because you still have a full-time gig too as well, if I recall right, with your hairdressing. Is that right? Is that still your full-time gig, or
Correct.
is that part-time?
It's part-time.
Okay. So you still have your part-time gig, but then you're also doing the modeling and then the various convention appearances, and then talking to someone like me in this capacity here.
Mhm.
Um, with the way things have gone for you since our last conversation, I've noticed there's a lot more changes as far as like the demand for yourself.
Yeah.
Have you felt anything? I guess what I'm asking you is like, do you, with the attention you're getting, the responses, the people want to speak with you, is there something about that's actually making you happier for what you have experienced, what you're sharing with everybody, wanting to know about your background, whatever else, the modeling as well too? Do you feel like that's actually making you happier as a result of the attention that you're getting? Where before you're happy with what you're doing in the field, but now that there's some changes on the way where you are experiencing, you want to just at least for the time being, for a certain period of time, at least as of right now, but everything else you have going for you right now, there's momentum building up. Is that making you happier? Because I'm not sure, maybe you said you're looking for yourself, you want to find something that you've never had before, but here you have something that I'm not sure if you've experienced beforehand that maybe has made you look at yourself much more differently now, hopefully in a happier light. But I'm curious where your stance on that is for yourself.
I am happier in a lot of ways, and also not so much in a lot of ways. It just depends on the situation. There's some things that have shifted in ways that I didn't expect, that have threw me off course a little bit, and I kind of had to claw my way back out of that like muddy abyss. But
Okay.
but there were other things that kind of kept me motivated and kept me going, and I guess I am happier with that. You know, the changes that I have gone through based on the attachment, some of them might say like, oh, okay, well, it benefited you. I mean, you're doing so much more now. You might look better now, or, you know, you're modeling now, or you have this recognition now. But yes, and that's a great side of it. But there's also the side of it where I don't sleep sometimes for days on end. But maybe like an hour or two here and there, and like where like I don't eat because I can't eat, or I don't have the appetite to eat, or my mind just races, and I get like super anxious, and like I get like that's when I know that I'm going to start getting more
Nice.
the automatic writings and stuff.
Oh, I
But I
see what
think
you're saying. Okay.
but I think those are the effects which lead me to be more high strung and impatient, because I'm not getting the nutrition that I need. I'm not getting the sleep that I need. I'm like mentally tired sometimes, not all the time.
Right.
You know, I like right now I feel amazing. You know, I'm having a great week, a very productive week. I'm getting a lot done and I feel really good. But there are times when it does get heavy. Like I don't want somebody to think like, oh, you know, let me go catch a spirit attachment and then I could get whatever and my life will be better. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, it's yin and yang. There is good that came from it. Yes, a lot of good that came from it. And there's a bad, but I'm not going to always share. That's what my book is for.
Right. I see
Read
what
the
you're saying. But do you think it's made you a better person going through these experiences, having gone through with the attention you're getting now? Like, do you feel?
No.
So I guess what I'm asking here is that if you had gotten all this attention now before you more or less had a better grasp of what you do now in the beginning, do you think you would have handled that, conduct yourself the way you are right now back then?
Mm-mm.
No.
Interesting. I think I probably would have been really cocky, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I think it probably would have went to my head more. I would have probably had a higher ego. I think that right now I really don't. I don't have that high. I mean, I'm a little vain. I'm not gonna lie. all of my social media is literally all me. But that's it.
Explain to me what you mean by vain, because I've asked.
Vain.
So I'm really curious about what you mean by that, because I think I understand what you mean, but when you're saying vain, are you talking about like you believe that you're really good looking, that you look good, and that
No,
therefore,
okay.
what do you mean by
No, I
vain?
guess I guess it's I always because I'm always like, yeah, I think I am better looking now than I was before, but I'm not saying that I'm like the best look. Like I feel personally for myself that I look better than I did before this happened. And I feel like I'm constantly looking at myself because I feel like I almost can't believe that it's really me.
So
This is gonna sound so cheesy and so stupid,
no,
but
no, it's not stupid, but it's. I'm glad you brought that up because I really wanted. When I'm asking this question, please understand where I'm coming from because it's coming from a good spot. But do you think that you're a good looking person? When you look at yourself, you're like, I am a very good looking person. Like I'm really happy with the way I look at. That's where I was asking for. It was kind of leaning more towards the vain aspect when you brought that up about yourself. I guess I'm curious if that's the perception you have of yourself. But when I asked that, I'm actually just curious about how you look at yourself in that way, where because you said before you would let it get to your head, not so much now. But how do you balance that out to determine for yourself? Like I think I'm good looking, therefore I'm not going to get it to my head. Like I'm curious where that comes from.
because I mean, do I think that I am pretty unattractive? I do. Do I think that I was pretty unattractive before when I was almost 200 pounds? I do. I just feel more confident and comfortable in my skin. And you
Mhm.
can feel that way and feel good about yourself without being an a-hole to other people,
Right.
you know? And like when I'm saying like I've become vain, that doesn't mean that I'm mean to other people and I think that I'm better looking than other people or anything like that. Like that's not where it's coming from. It's more about me against me. It's like I can't believe that this is where I'm at now as opposed to then. Like
Right.
I'll look at pictures of how I was before or whatever and be like, "Ew, you see this?" And I'm like, ew, like why? And that's I'm nasty to myself, but I would not I don't, I find beauty in a lot of people in a
But
lot of
why are
different
you nasty
ways.
to yourself though? Like what makes you
Because
say that?
everybody's their own, worst critic.
But what exactly are you
Everybody
criticizing about yourself though? Because I mean, if you believe
I
that,
have to look at my stupid face and I have to hang out
but
with
you
myself
say that
all day,
though.
every day.
I understand,
No, but I am
but you say
I'm
that
so
though. But
annoying.
I don't think you're annoying. But you say that, but it contradicts with what you're saying before about yeah, I believe I'm a good looking person. But you're saying these things about you, like it seems a little off to me that you would say that about
Oh,
yourself. But yet I'm hoping that you're just joking. But even with that though, like a part of me is wondering like where that's all coming from because if you're not letting it get to your head, I mean you said it yourself, you can believe that you're good, you can be conceited or whatever the case may be and still be a good person, still not be an asshole.
hmm.
But yet you're telling yourself, I look at myself every single day and I'm looking at my stupid face and this and that. I'm thinking, so why would you say that about yourself in that capacity? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
My stupid thing. Because it's like because it's just all I look at.
Okay. You know what's funny? I'm gonna throw myself. I hope you don't mind, but I look at myself almost every day, and I've not to say that I say this to myself, but I do look at myself because I'm bringing this because I've never looked at it the way you have, at least for a while, at least because I used to think that way before, but not so much now. Actually, very rarely do I ever think that way. But because I told you before that I used to be a lot heavier too. In fact, there's old videos of me from when I was doing the show and reviews and whatever else, where I was just a fat ass. Like you could just see my face just fill up half the screen. I was heavy, and then I lost the weight, and then I actually brought this up with somebody in the show actually, where I was telling them that when I started editing the videos after I lost the weight, like I was looking, I was like, I'm very happy with what I'm seeing. Like I was looking at other things about myself as well too. I was very concerned how conceited I sounded when I thought this to myself. And when I was looking at myself, I was like, um, I felt happier that I looked healthier. That I looked relieved in a lot of ways. But and I liked the way I was interacting with various people and the way I was doing things and so on. and I enjoyed looking at myself in the process, not for conceited reasons. It was more like I just loved the way that it made me feel in that moment after I've already completed more or less the task at hand. And I got satisfaction out of that. But I learned that as I was watching myself. And then when I look at myself in the mirror and I was like, this is actually a really good thing that you feel this about yourself. But never once did I ever feel like it was conceited or I was being vain. At least I never looked at it that way. So it's very interesting that you bring this up, because you have a completely different perspective on something. And then I have looked at it from a complete set of lenses for myself. And I find that fascinating when people talk that way. And yet someone like yourself who says, I believe I'm good looking, but yet you say, I look at myself every single day and it's annoying. I'm like, but you just said you're good looking. And I would think that you'd be happy to look at yourself. That's how I look at it for myself too.
I mean, I am, but it's just like, I don't know, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to explain where I'm coming from. I don't want to be a vain person. I wasn't a vain person before.
I know what you're saying. I know where you're getting at, but
so
I guess
just feel like,
the insult is what kind of caught me by surprise when you say that.
oh, my stupid face?
Yeah, like I'm just wondering, why? Why would you say that? I was just, at least that's how I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Oh, that's just how I talk.
Okay.
My stupid face. That's all. My mug. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, I think going back to before, a lot of people just shifted away from me. And I can't understand why. And
do you blame yourself for that?
I don't.
Okay. Okay.
There's a lot of people that just don't love me, or they do. They either like me or they don't. And I can't blame myself for them not liking me. That's on them.
Right.
I mean, if I've given you a specific reason, if I've done something to you and you don't like me, then obviously, so sorry, I didn't mean it. Like, see how that's my attitude now. That's why people don't like me, because I'm just like, sorry.
Oh, I think I have a better understanding now.
Yeah.
So maybe it may come across as if though you don't really care.
Yeah, but I do care.
Right, but I guess the way that you're expressing it comes off that way to them.
I'm very cold now. Very, very cold and to the point. Very abrupt.
But don't you think that's a good thing though? Where you're not wasting time?
I do. Okay. I do think it's a good thing, but I think that the people that were used to me before, where I would apologize for literally it would rain out and I would apologize to you for the freaking rain. I would feel bad it rained on your day. That's how I was. And so therefore people took advantage of that, and they took me for granted, and they took a lot out of me. So when I switched around and it's like, do I feel bad for you? Yes. Am I taking responsibility for that? No. Am I going to feel bad like that you don't like me? If I've done nothing to you and you don't like me, and that's your own reason for you not to, if I've done nothing to you and you look at me and you decide you don't like me, I'm not going to apologize to you for that. I don't feel bad for you for that. If I have done something to you and that's why you don't like me, of course I would feel terrible. I don't want to hurt anyone.
Right.
I would not, that's just.
So basically, so basically, from what you're describing now, because now I think I have a much better understanding from what you're describing here to me, is that you've actually changed for the better, where before you used to put up for a lot, or you would, service others more so than yourself, if that makes any sense. And then you realize that not doing it anymore, something made that change for you, whether it be the spirit, whatever it specifically had caused that for you. Probably did you a favor from the sounds of it, and it helped you a lot. But so I guess that's kind of where I was kind of confused about with where you were coming from. But now that you've elaborated further, I think it makes a lot more sense. So basically, like I said before, you've become short with the things that you used to put up with and not putting up with anymore. And the people who were used to that don't like that.
Right. And and also I'm not going to live my life for somebody else.
Right.
If you don't like what I'm doing, that's okay, but you're not doing it. So that's focus on yourself. I'm not going to stop doing things that I do for anyone else because I'm not hurting anyone's health or whatever. I'm not going to stop chasing my dreams or I'm kind of just taking everything one day at a time right now
Right.
and seeing where it goes. And I'm really enjoying my life, and I'm not going to stop enjoying my life because somebody else doesn't like me or doesn't want me to do something anymore, whereas I would have before.
So, because you're taking on these new and same endeavors with some possibilities of new ones coming along the way, are you more optimistic now with the way things are looking for you? Even though we not you may not know what the outcome may be, but by the way things are looking for you right now, are you seeing some prospects of like great opportunities presenting itself somewhere down the line that you may realize that this so far looks like worth my while. It's taken a long time to get where I'm at, and now that I'm
Yeah.
here, you mentioned before you're taking more control of the situation, but do you feel like it's like you're happier seeing what you can potentially experience down the line?
I am. I
Okay.
am. I think that there are a lot of great opportunities that are popping out there for me. So I'm looking forward to those and seeing where those lead, and then hopefully they lead to further opportunities. And you know what? If it doesn't lead to anything, I would have had the best time along the way either way. So I'm just really just focusing on trying to enjoy the life that I have while I have it.
Mhm.
Uh, and try and stay on this path of continuing my creepy dark poetry and I like writing poems like that. And I just want to put it out there, like
Right.
I get a lot of messages in my inbox when I post poems, and I have to say I'm so thankful for the amount of people who genuinely care enough to reach out to me to make sure that I'm not going through something really heavy at the time for sharing those poems.
Right.
But they're poems based on automatic writings that I've received. It's not all of them,
Hmm.
but they're also poems. It's a creative outlet, and I just want to be able to share my poem without having to always have to explain to somebody either no, this isn't about you or you or you or you. It's just a poem. Like can I so I kind of pulled back from sharing those. So I'm looking forward to sharing a lot more of those coming up and seeing where that goes.
You know what you reminded me when you were talking about sharing your poem, because you posted quite a few videos where you're reading them, and I think
Yeah.
I made a comment about when you read your poems, you don't have your Long Island accent when you read them, and you actually replied back
No.
saying, "I never noticed that." And I was like, "Really? I'm surprised. I thought you did that on purpose."
No, I didn't realize.
So can you lose your Long Island accent as a result are you taking the time to read your poetry, or is it just one of those things where it was just like a
Just
thing that you
it
just
just
didn't,
comes
didn't realize it? Okay,
yeah, it just
interesting.
comes.
It's very interesting.
I did train myself how to say ask. So
That's funny.
that was really a tough one to get over. I can't even say it the old way anymore. Axe,
X,
F,
yeah, yeah.
X. Yeah, no. Um,
Are you
ask.
trying to get
I
into like
had to
the
train.
entertainment field too? To apart from
Oh my
modeling.
gosh. For a while, like for a really long time, I wanted to do like get into some voice acting stuff and some regular acting stuff. And
Mhm.
I did film for a few things, but they never
Came out.
made it off. Yeah, they
Yeah.
never came out. Um, but that's okay. It was a cool experience to have. But yeah, I'm definitely trying to just get myself out there. As I said, like my father was a musician,
Mhm.
and he was into all of that kind of stuff and theatrical, taking us to plays since we were really little. And that's just another thing that I connected with him on. A lot of stuff I do in my life is a way to connect with him,
Right.
and so I definitely I definitely feel a pull in that direction that I always have. Like the voice thing, he's like my dad used to do like all the voices from like Bugs Bunny and Looney Tunes and all that kind of stuff. And like, so like I used to do like Betty Boop and all these
Right,
little voices. So
right,
it was
right.
always something I tried to get into, but I just don't. I've not been lucky.
Why have you not been so lucky? Is it because it's a competitive field and it's just
I think that there are people who are just much better at it. Um,
Mhm.
that have uh that have more talent, more experience, more connections, more they have what the people are looking for. I think that I have not met my my thing yet. It might not, maybe it's not for me. I said before, everything happens for a reason. Maybe
Right,
it's not my path, you know?
right.
So maybe that's why it didn't work out. At least that's what I'm going to tell myself. Um,
Interesting. I mentioned to you before about the why I want to reach out to you again because I really did enjoy our conversation. As I mentioned before in the messages, that if it wasn't for Brim, making that suggestion, I don't think I would have ever considered talking to anyone in especially in the paranormal field, if spiritual.
right,
I don't think I would have ever done it because it was quite at certain points. It was quite dismissive. It was more like, it's not my thing.
right.
Um, so when he had recommended to speak with you, or he had asked, can you talk to her? She's got a new book coming out. Yeah, it was part of his company, and I thought, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, I don't know if I want to because I don't know what to ask. I just don't know where to go with this here. And because if the way I saw it is that if Brim is recommending, can you, if he's asking, can you please talk to her? I was like, it's got to be, if he's really suggesting to talk to you, I was like, there's got to be a good reason behind that because I trust Brim when it comes to recommendations. So in preparation to speak with you, I had listened to I think one or two interviews that you had done at least at that time, and then
Hmm.
getting your book, having read it. And I said to you before that I'm not really a poetry guy. It's not really my thing. I don't have anything against it. It just doesn't really capture my attention. Very few have. But when I was reading your book, and I've read it twice, especially at that time, I was like, this is actually quite good. And the fact that it got my attention, then I was like, okay, now I think I'm seeing why Brim made the recommendation. Having heard the previous conversations before about more or less your starting point for your career in this field, I got more interested, but even then I was still kind of ill prepared, despite the fact that I had a bunch of questions to ask you because I had no idea where it was going to go. I really was
Right.
kind of like winging it to some degree. And once you had answered my questions, um, a lot more has sparked for me about how I looked at the field, much more different than it was before. Truthfully, I'm still very much skeptical, but not in so much in a negative light. It's more like I would like to see it one day to see just to experience that, what you guys have gone through or are going through it rather. And hoping that one day I can get a much better grasp about now I understand why it makes sense for them to follow through with this path here. So with all that being said though, this is essentially me telling you again now in this capacity here, thank you for giving me a chance to learn about this here and for you to take the time to answer my questions. And, despite the fact we were all over the place, which I was perfectly fine with here, but the fact that you've have educated me, that really you've changed a lot for me about how I look at certain things when it comes to this stuff. So again, I want to say thank you for that. Um, I was honestly anticipating for the next book to be coming out, well within the year, at least at that last time that we spoke. And I'm actually
Yeah.
surprised it hasn't come out at all. I was really surprised. I was like, I actually thought it would just be within months or within the year. And when I
Right.
see
It
it hasn't
was
been come out
supposed
yet,
to be.
okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be. I was putting in the finishing touches. Uh, I was in Gettysburg. I was putting on finishing touches. I clicked save and my computer crashed and
Oh,
deleted my entire book.
interesting. I'm
I
so
can't
sorry to
help
hear
but laugh.
that.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry to hear
I,
that.
I can't help but have that reaction because it's like that's the kind of look I have.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm getting all red. So I rewrote it. So it took a little time. I was able to save some of it, but oh my God, I was so upset. Yeah. So I think that happened for a reason. I really like the direction that I took it in this time. I added a lot more of the history of the town. So you get like for the back history, I added, my own personal history. I added, so I added the English history. I added the Indigenous people of Southampton's, their history, because it's very much different from the English history. So I feel like you should have both, in there. And then it goes into her story and my story and living and coping with it. So I feel like I definitely added a lot, some definitions, some photos, and
You think it's
links.
better than your first book from what you're
Yeah,
describing? Okay.
better than my first one that got deleted. You mean?
No, I'm talking about your first book that you officially
Very,
released.
very, very different, because that's just a very niche thing. That's just very that's poetry, and based on her automatic writings, and from her automatic writings. This is the actual story that tells you how did that happen, why did that happen, and how it is like living with and coping with and trying to function having this experience.
So is it like kind of like a novel format, more or less?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
And I share photos in there, and I discuss things that I've never discussed on a public forum. I did bring some stuff up at a panel that I did recently, but it's very personal stuff that I didn't feel comfortable sharing, that I'm now putting in writing. There's photos from injuries that had occurred from the attachment itself in the beginning. So I'm basically just laying it all out there, and I'm really excited about it because it is what it is. So,
do you have like a tentative window as far as when you think it might be ready to come out?
So I should be done with my book by March. I want to say like March 1st that week.
Okay.
I just have to then send it out to be proofread, edited, all that stuff, and then it'll be ready to go. And with that, I also have my next poetry book ready to go as well.
So is the book you're looking to aim probably like for like a fall release by the looks of it?
Yeah, hoping before then. I'm hoping before then, but hopefully not too much past that, because I don't want to wait anymore. Just
because you're impatient.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, I would love to have a read at it once it comes out, and I would love to have you back on to delve into that as well too, because I'd be really curious to see what I've come across with the book, and then have you share some additional insight that I may inquire about. So yeah, I'd be very interested to have you back on to take it from there though. But
I'd be so honored.
Well, I appreciate you giving me your time here. So I guess for the cameras, I will just say to you that I cannot wait for this book to come out. I really enjoyed your first book. I still have it here to this day here in the room. And I look forward to the fact that you're saying it's more like a novel. I'm very excited for that as well too. Because there's actually, you're taking on a new approach from what you have released in your first book. And the fact that I'm assuming that the poetry that's going to come out, is that more like an accompanying with the release, or is that going to be like a whole separate thing down the line as well too? Okay.
Yeah, separate.
So
I wanted to come out. I do want it to come out around the same time. I do want it to kind of pop out at the same time, but we'll see. We'll see what they say.
All right. Well, once that drops, I will definitely be getting my copy here. And but again, I want to say thank you again for giving me your time, because this was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm thankful that you've given me the time to share with me these insights and your story. And I got to learn more about your vanity and your impatience. So, but thank you for all that. It was a lot of fun. I really did appreciate your time here. So thanks again.
Just one more thing. Sorry, I hate to be annoying. The book. There's some poems in there. I don't know off the top of my head, but I found out that if you read them upside down, like if you read them from the bottom up, they make sense also. It has a little bit of a different tone to it.
From the bottom up, it has a different tone, you said?
Yeah. So like read it like you would a regular, but just from the bottom up.
So you're talking about your current book or the new one that's come out?
The one that's out already.
Okay. Well, I have to look at that now, because I never thought of it looking at that way before.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Okay. Well, again,
Yeah, that's why I just want to mention it quick. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you giving me a chance in the first place. That was really amazing of you.
well, it's an honor to have you on the show, and I'm very happy that
Thank
you
you.
agreed to come back on because this was a lot of fun, and I would love to pick up when we last stopped again to have you back on here again. So I appreciate everything you've given here. So again, thanks for your time and cheers to you.
I love that. Thank you. You too.